Is early retirement as good as everyone says? I'll tell you how it's going for me after 3 months of early retiring at age 53 on January 1st of this year. Before we do that, like and subscribe so you'll see future updates on how it's going for me. So if you haven't seen any of my videos, I'm a former federal lawyer who early retired on January 1st after 20 years of federal service. So it's been 3 months in, and some things are going better than I thought, and some things are going worse than I thought. When I accepted the early retirement offer at my agency, part of the deal was that I would get to keep my health insurance and I would get a set pension forever. It seemed like a good deal. However, it normally takes 3 to 6 months for OPM to properly calculate your pension after you leave, and that was causing a problem because I was getting an interim payment and it was half of what I thought I would get. So when I initially retired, I thought the pension, which would be about $3,000 something after tax a month, would not be enough to live on, but I can sort of sell some stocks and make up the difference every month to cover my monthly expenses. However, when I was getting these interim payments, they were less than half that, and I didn't know when it was going to be corrected. And as I was selling stock to make up the difference, the market was tanking due to President Musk and Donald Trump's policies. So it was causing a big problem for me. Add to the fact that I couldn't check on the status of that because I had gotten several pieces of mail from OPM telling me what was going on, but one of the pieces of mail, which I never got, had a number to log in with a special password to set up an account. And because I didn't have that number, there was no way that I could check online. And when I called the number for OPM, it would hang up on me. There was no way to leave a message. There was no way to call and talk to a human. The only way to do it was online. And because I had never gotten this piece of paper, I was not able to do that. So I routinely get mail from my neighbors, to the left to the right, and I give it to them and vice versa. But this one apparently fell through the cracks. So I was sort of stuck not knowing how to check this online, not having a way to check it online, and not knowing when this money thing was going to get resolved, and knowing that they were firing people at every federal agency, including OPM. I didn't know if it was going to take 3 months to resolve, 6 months, or if it would ever get resolved. Luckily, a couple of days ago, I got a communication from OPM, and it looks like things should get solved by the end of this month. So hopefully from here on forward, I'll be getting the correct amount, and it'll alleviate some of the stress. So while that was going on and I wasn't getting the right amount and the market was tanking, I sort of had a freak out, and I applied for a couple of jobs at a bank and another bank, and I got a couple of interviews and they went well, but I'm sort of have a mixed mind about it. So when I had gone up to New York with my better half, because she had a business meeting up there, I went to have drinks with a former coworker who's working at a bank in Manhattan that I'm not going to name. And for an hour, he was telling me about how miserable he is working there and stuff like that. And I mentioned that I wanted to transition to a different career. I wanted to work in green energy because I thought if I was still at the government, I wouldn't have left for a lower salary. But now that I'm getting a pension, money is sort of a secondary concern because I wouldn't need as much. And so I thought, well, I would really love to work in green energy and use my powers for good. And I mentioned that before I worked in the government, 20 years prior, I worked at a law firm, and I had experience with energy companies and M&A, but traditional energy companies like natural gas and stuff like that. And I thought with my background in finance and my prior experience, I could get a job in green energy that I would enjoy going to work in the morning. I would skip to work. I would love doing that. And I mentioned it to my coworker, and he immediately dismissed it and said, "That's ridiculous. That was 20 years ago. No one's going to take you seriously. Why don't you just go work at a bank?" I was a little deflated, but also shocked because for the past hour, he'd been telling me how miserable he was working at a bank, and now he's telling me to go work at a bank. But, I was having this minor freak out about money because I wasn't getting my pension at the right amount, and the stocks I was selling to make up the difference. The market was tanking, so I didn't know if that was going to throw off my whole plan. So there's something called sequence of returns risk, where this is a big problem. Like if you had retired in 2007 and then the 2008 financial crisis happened where you lost 70% of your money, it would throw things off depending on, so that was an issue. So I did apply to a couple of banks and I had 2 interviews and they went well. And I am the world's worst interviewer, world's worst. The only 2 jobs, well, 3 if you count an internship that I had on Capitol Hill. The only 3 jobs that I've ever had have been because somebody recommended me. So my first internship, my friend Chris recommended me because he had already worked there. The job at a law firm I had interviewed, and luckily my resume landed on the firm of a partner who knew somebody at my law school and said good things about me. I'm a very likable person in person. And then when I went to the government, a law professor had worked at the agency I worked at, and he also put in a good word for me. And so despite my terrible interview skills, I was hired there. So now I'm in the position where I'm doing interviews, and I had 2 interviews recently, last week, in fact. And one of them, I lucked out because not 100% fit for the role, but I think I'm still in the running because somebody I used to work with is the manager there. So she's not responsible for the hiring, but, she did work with me, not on projects, but, on the same floor. And she liked me because everybody likes me because I'm nice to everyone. I'm not a jerk, and hopefully 20 years of not being a jerk to people will pay off. And then the other one is 100% match for exactly what I do, but it would be in Manhattan, not DC. So I think if it was in person, I could definitely do it once a week, go up and come down. Twice a week, maybe go up, stay a night and come down. But if it's 3 times a week, that's not going to happen. And, if they would be willing to do it in the DC office 100%, but, Manhattan is going to be tricky. So I'd have to figure that out. So that's career-wise what's going on. And with the green energy thing, I did not give up. So I was not going to let one person discourage me. And I wanted a second opinion. So I called one of the most positive people I know, who's also an interesting person, my friend Chris. So Chris is the one who got me the internship on Capitol Hill. And he had a very interesting career. So most lawyers are miserable, like my friend in Manhattan. But Chris loved what he did because he did class action work. And with class action work, when you sue on behalf of thousands of people, and then, you get a settlement. Chris told me that it was all the best parts of being a lawyer. You got to go to court. You got to draft legal briefs. You got to make arguments. It was all the good parts, except you don't have a client. So it's even better. And he said if he didn't have a boss, it would be perfect. And eventually he left and started his own firm. So he didn't have a boss. So he was even happier. And somehow ended up representing professional sports players, athletes, and then got into cannabis somehow. And so I called him because if there's anyone who's good at changing careers, it's Chris, and he's a relentlessly positive person. So I called him and I mentioned what happened in Manhattan and how I was discouraged from doing it by my former coworker. And Chris said, is this guy a good friend of yours? And I said, no, not really. I mean, we work together, but I wouldn't say he's a good friend. And he's like, okay, good. Because what I'm about to say would offend you if he's a good friend, but he's like, fuck that guy. Miserable people want to make you miserable. They don't want to see you happy, so don't listen to him. And he actually gave me some really good advice about switching a career. And he said, well, you're home now and you have time. So pretend you're in law school and you're studying for finals. For the next 3 months or 6 months, He said, instead of just sending out resumes and trying to get an interview at a solar company or a wind energy company and trying to convince them how good you are, just study up on it several hours a day, and then you'll be ready, and you'll have the skills that you're missing. You won't have to tell them you can learn it. You will have already learned it. And I thought that was really good advice. And what I actually did is I started a separate YouTube channel where I'm going to post green energy stuff and talk about different concepts. And hopefully, when I apply to these jobs and they ask for your LinkedIn and your other social media profiles, I thought I could put that in, and it'll be sort of a video resume. I don't know if that'll work because I posted 3 videos on that site and I have 0 views except for my own. So it hasn't worked yet, but I'm willing to try it. And so thanks to Chris for that. And, Chris, as I said, is a very interesting person. Besides being a class action lawyer, he's very into fitness. So he used to work at a gym, met professional athletes. They liked him and weren't happy with their lawyers and started hiring him. So he was representing professional athletes, and professional athletes, as you know, they do silly things like invest in nightclubs and restaurants. And one guy that he knew had invested in a cannabis company in California. I think it was like $1 million, and he thought he was going to lose it all. And Chris went to check it out and talked to everyone and took notes and came back and said, okay, this is what you need to do to fix it. And then the guy didn't want to hire somebody to fix it, so he told Chris to do it. And Chris became involved in a cannabis company and eventually took it public, so you can buy shares of it if you have Interactive Brokers on the and that's my friend Chris. So Chris is a wonderful guy, and I appreciate the help he offered me when I was down. So yeah, thanks, Chris. So that's where that is professionally, and personally, there's been some other setbacks. So I had thought about leaving the government before and going into the private sector, and the thing that convinced me to leave was that besides the pension, I would be able to take my health insurance with me and keep that in retirement forever. So why is that such a big deal? So my better half has a serious medical condition, and it's something called myasthenia gravis. And there's actually an episode of House MD about it. That's how rare it is. And there is a variant of it that only like 15% of the people have it. And it's actually called MuSK, myasthenia gravis, muscle-specific kinase. And it's a more severe version of it. And just like how in the government, MuSK makes everything worse, MuSK makes myasthenia gravis worse. So, this involves specialists and, infusions, rounds of infusions where, you're there for 8 hours with a needle in your arm getting these treatments. And so where she works, she has better insurance than I do. However, I thought if I went to the private sector, what if we both got laid off at the same time? And although that's highly unlikely, the odds are not 0. And so I wasn't willing to take that risk, because anything above 0, when it's somebody you care about, is not something I was willing to do. And so when this offer came for early retirement, and I could keep my health insurance, I thought, okay, this is fine, because she can keep her health insurance, which is better. And then if she ever has to leave the job or gets laid off, then she can be on mine, and everything will be good forever. So that has been comforting, but she has already had a couple of rounds of these infusions. So she was not well, and then did well with the first infusion, then regressed, and had to have a second round infusion. And now it looks like within the next month or 2, she's going to have a third round of these infusions, where as I said, it's several hours, and there's more than one time that you have to do this, and so that's a thing. And although we had talked about living in other cities, this medical issue obviously is a concern because, you would have to find a different specialist in whatever city we went to. And obviously you can probably find that in a place like New York or Boston, but, it might not be possible in every city. So if you wanted to move to Portugal, that might be a problem. But, we're dealing with it as we can. And, there's this saying that a healthy person wants 1,000 things, but, a person who's sick only wants one thing. And I think that's true, but, we're working on it and doing the best we can. So that's where I am personally, professionally, financially. And I did notice something else though. When I was sort of the most stressed out because, I wasn't getting the correct pension amount, the markets were tanking, and, these medical issues were happening. I sort of figured I could do something to get rid of that. And, there's lots of psychological studies that show that, one way to deal with anxiety and depression is to help others. And so I had this video that this vlog on YouTube that I used to do with my friend where we would talk about legal cases like the Alec Baldwin shooting or the Darrell Brooks thing. And my friend got busy with it, so we stopped doing it, and then it sort of went dormant. But when these firings started happening at the federal government and these bogus offers from OPM, I started doing some videos to give people guidance on what to do about that, and directing them to the correct provisions of OPM or the federal regulations or the applicable law. And not thinking I would get anything out of it, but in less than a month, I have now 1,200 subscribers, and it recently got monetized. And, I don't expect this to be a full-time thing, and I don't think it will replace the salary I would get at a job. When I looked at how much it says I'm going to get, it's like $71 this month, and 3 people have, bought me a coffee with the link, which is, another 15. So it's not going to replace a job, but I wasn't doing it for the money, and it did really do a lot for my spirits to see the people in the comments thanking me for, answering their questions, because their HR people are swamped and they're getting false information from the Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, and the G has a gus sound, so it should be doggy, and I refuse to pronounce it Doge. If you're going to pronounce it Doge, why not douche, right? Pronounce it douche because it's named after Elon Musk. So you can pronounce it doggy, or I'll pronounce it douche, but I refuse to pronounce it the other way because it's stupid, just like Elon Musk is stupid. He's phony and a grifter. He didn't invent Tesla. It was a guy named Martin Eberhard. And the truck that Elon actually designed is a piece of shit. And it's the bumper falls off if you tow something. If you use it off-road, it voids the warranty. And they stopped shipping them a couple of days ago because the front part falls off because it was glued on. So sure, gluing things on rather than screwing them on is more efficient, but is that the kind of efficiency you want on your truck? Is that the kind of efficiency you want in the government? I don't know. You tell me. But leave a comment if you think that's okay. But that was my rant, and I forgot where I was. But that was my rant, and I forgot where I was. But now I remember. Okay, so I set up this website, and I was answering questions about the voluntary early retirement and your pension and things like that. And people would ask other questions, and then if I could reply in the comments, I would. But if it was a lot longer question, a lot longer answer, I did separate videos. So then this grew. And as I said, now I have 1,200 subscribers. And it's not something that I thought I would be doing, but I like helping out. And, these people can't get to OPM, and they're people at their own agency. We had one guy who was processing our early retirement stuff when the offer came, and he was swamped. And I can't imagine at these other agencies that they're firing people in HR and expecting the remaining people to process all this stuff. So they can't get these simple questions answered. And I'm glad I was able to help. And, I do tell them I'm not an employment lawyer, but, I have ADHD, an internet connection, and a law degree. And I figured I can find the answer. So it's done a lot for my spirits, knowing that I'm helping people who would otherwise be stressed out and not be able to find the answers. So that's been one positive thing about retirement. And I have been making it to the gym more. I'm up to twice a week now, and hopefully I can get it up to 7 days a week soon. But, other things have taken priority, like these interviews and fixing stuff around the house. So twice a week, and hopefully next week I'm going to get it up to 3 days a week, and then the week after that 4 days a week. So I don't want to set unrealistic goals like next week I'm just going to go every day, because then if you can't meet your goals, you're disappointed. So I think 2 days a week is fine, and then I can up it to 3 days a week and just keep building on that, keep building momentum. And these interviews, I'm going to hear back next week on one of them, so fingers crossed. And if that happens, fine, it'll alleviate all of my money issues. And if it doesn't happen, I'm going to keep working on the green energy stuff and hopefully have a nice video resume for when I apply for more jobs in a field where I would happily leap out of bed and skip to work in the morning, knowing I'm decarbonizing the planet and making the world a better place. And I also did talk to a friend about doing some volunteer work. So I was in touch with a former boss of mine, and he suggested that the AARP has this volunteer line that you can call where seniors who are getting targeted by people with Ponzi schemes and stuff like that, you can sort of volunteer and take the calls. And that's part of what I did in my old job. So I figured, okay, I could do that. I wouldn't get paid for it, but I would feel good about doing that 1 or 2 days a week. And, same thing, helping people. So, 3 months in, not what I expected, but things are moving in the right direction. And, doing things like studying up on green energy and going to the gym and fixing stuff around my house. I think that's good, not only for my mental health and enjoying my space, but when I was at my old office in person, you have these things on your wall, and one of them that I had was a quote from Dan Gable, who was a famous wrestler, the greatest wrestler the U.S. ever produced. And it said, if it's important, do it every day. If it's not important, don't do it at all. And I think that's sort of a good way to think about things. If you're going to do something, like, does this even matter? And if not, don't do it. But things like, going to the gym, connecting with your friends, taking care of your loved ones, that's important. So that's something you should be doing every day and not putting that off. So that's my 3-month update. As I said, some things are going better than I thought. Some things are going worse than I thought. I do think I don't regret early retiring. I think the timing was perfect because my agency now is going through a RIF. And had I left now, I think these processing of paperwork that's taking 3 to 6 months from OPM might take 6 months to a year. So imagine the stress if you are relying on this pension and you're only getting half of what you should get, and that's going to go on for a year. That's really stressful. I do think if I had stayed and the RIF goes through, let's say in June, that would have been 6 months more that I wouldn't gotten paid, and I could have had an additional 6 months and then still gotten all this pension benefits and stuff like that. But, there's no guarantee that that would happen because at the time there was no talk about firing everyone at the federal government. And the VERA was sort of a voluntary early retirement offer was a bird in hand. And although it might have been better had I stayed, There's this thing called a Monte Carlo simulation if you work in finance. And basically, they run a simulation with minor changes and they run it thousands of times. And you sort of see what can happen under different scenarios. And the way to think about it is sort of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where they have these alternate realities, and Spider-Man in this universe is different than Spider-Man in the other universe. So when you make a choice like that, should I have left January 1st or should I have waited and take the RIF and the buyout? I think a good way to think of it is you don't want the outcome which gives you the best result in one, the choice which gives you a best result in one universe and the worst result in another universe. You want to make the choice that gives you a good outcome in every universe. And so, if you think about the people at the top right now, like the Jeff Bezoses and the Elon Musk has almost gone bankrupt several times, and now he's the richest guy on earth. But he may go bankrupt again because people are boycotting Tesla, and in some countries, sales are down like 75%, and his whole company is a financial pyramid. And so this may destroy him yet, just like everyone involved in the previous Trump administration was destroyed, disbarred, bankrupt. Just look at Rudy Giuliani. But if you think about these alternate universes, in alternate universes, someone like Elon Musk or someone like Jeff Bezos is going to be on top, but it's not going to be them. It's always going to be some huge risk taker who lucked out, and then the other huge risk takers ended up bankrupt, like Sam Bankman-Fried or the MyPillow guy. So you don't want the result. You don't want to make the choices where the results in one universe are great and the other one you're bankrupt. You want where you're great in every universe. And there's a guy who is a not well known, but a really bright guy called Naval Ravikant, who's a Silicon Valley guy, and he made several million, and now he's sort of semi-retired because he wants to raise his kids. And he said, if I die and I leave enough money that they name buildings and hospitals after me, I overshot it. I have enough. And I think that's a good philosophy to say you have enough. And there's a famous story about the guy who wrote Catch-22. I'm blanking on his name. And he went to a dinner party with Kurt Vonnegut and some rich hedge fund guy who was bragging about how much he makes. And Vonnegut said to the guy, Joseph Heller, that's his name, does it bother you that this guy makes more in 1 year than your book will make you in your entire life, even though it's a bestseller? And Heller said, no, because I have something that guy will never have. And he said, what is that? He said, I have enough. So with these greedy people on top, like Elon Musk, there's never enough money for them. Like they always want more and more. And it's something dark in their soul that they're unhappy people and they'll never be satisfied. But, I think you should be satisfied with the important things in life, which are your family, your friends, your loved ones, helping people, making the world a better place, not trying to hoard as much wealth as you can. Because if it wasn't dollars, imagine it was water, right? And you said, well, I have more water than I can drink in my lifetime, so I'm going to store more water so my kids will have water and my grandkids will have fresh water. And I have enough water for 10,000 lifetimes, but I still want more. And I'm just going to keep buying swimming pools and storing it, storage tanks. People would think you're crazy because, you have enough. So, don't obsess about the money, because the money is just to buy things and things won't make you happy. People make you happy because people are life. So anyway, that wasn't a rant. I don't know what that was, but things are looking up for me, and, it wasn't what I expected. We've got some health issues in our household that we're dealing with, and, we're dealing with it. But 3 months in, I'm satisfied with my choice. I'm glad I retired when I did. People that message me from where I used to work are really stressed out, and having a difficult time. So I feel like I timed it perfectly. And my timing has always been good. So when I was younger, I used to work in construction with my dad, and my dad had a horrible accident where a staircase collapsed and he fell from the sixth floor of a building to the second floor, and he broke his back and both his legs, and he's got pins in his back for the rest of his life, but he survived. And after that, I kept working on the job site because we tried to keep the company going. And then on a Friday, I finished work and we left. And then 40 minutes later, the building collapsed. So had I stayed late, I'd be dead. And after that, my dad closed the business down. He said, he didn't want me or anyone else getting injured. And he made me promise that I wouldn't work in construction. And that's why I started taking classes and eventually graduated community college, graduated 4-year college, went to law school and had a great career. And now I'm retired and planning on my next steps. But 90 days in, things are going great. So I'll try to do another update in a month and let you know how things are going. In the meantime, my better half has some round of infusions coming up. A round of infusions coming up. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers. And I'll see you guys in 30 days. Like and subscribe so you see the next update. Talk to you soon.